Hello everyone, welcome to this Tribe video. This is Paul Mallory. I'm delighted to welcome Carrie Brooks, a life coach who joins us today. Welcome, Carrie.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
It's a delight to have you here. Carrie is a professional life coach, as I say. She's a speaker, blogger and writer. We'll talk maybe about your book a little bit later on.
Okay.
It says on your website, Carrie, that you've been coaching athletes, company directors and divorcees. So
yes, a lot. I have
you've
many.
covered every angle.
Absolutely.
And people aged 17 to 72, so that's a fairly broad mix.
Yeah.
Today I thought it was a theme I picked up in one of your blogs, Carrie, that I'd like to explore with you, living a limitless life. Really nice to explore what that means and how we might do it more. I think it fits very nicely with the Thrive Tribe theme.
Yeah, good.
But, okay, let's have a go at that and maybe start with what is a limitless life, and do we have the right to expect to live a limitless life? How does it work with expectations and so on?
It's quite interesting. I always believe we always have a choice. We have a choice about the life we want to live, and that we actually create our lives. So, with a limitless life, like I said before when we chatted, it's about, okay, a limitless life, well, where are the limits and who imposes the limits? This is what really interests me, because I read, just before coming on, I just looked up a quote, which says, limitations live only in our minds, but if we use our imaginations, our possibilities become limitless. And I found that really interesting because limitations live in our minds. When we talk about Stephen Hawkins, we talk about Paralympians, they do have sort of physical limits. However, they are actually reaching their full potential as human beings. And it's a mindset. And it's about sort of tapping into this mindset and realizing that we have a choice. And actually the limits that we have in our lives, we are imposing. I think very visually. So, Gulliver's Travels, and when he was in the land of the Lilliputians, and there's this picture that comes to mind where he's lying on the ground and he's tied down with all these little bands that the Lilliputians have put on him. And I see limitation very much like this, like we're lying there and we have all these little bands actually that we've imposed ourselves through limiting beliefs, but also culturally and conditioning, we have all those bands. But the beauty is that we can begin to start removing these bands. And I call them Lilliputian bands because I like the idea and I'm quite visual. So it's about sort of discovering, okay, well, what are my Lilliputian bands? How am I holding myself back here? And literally starting to become aware. Instead of just sort of just going on and saying, yeah, well, I can't do this, that's not possible, is just to start stepping back and start gaining, developing an awareness of, hang on a minute, let me step back and what choices am I making here? And are they the most empowering ones for me?
Because there are also some real limitations, aren't there, on people, physical limitations, and I'm probably not going to become a 100-meter sprinter anytime soon and win a gold medal. Frankly, I think my legs just aren't long enough. But I guess what you're saying, Carrie, is probably much bigger. Is this web of kind of deceiving belief that we put on ourselves, that we're telling ourselves that we're limited in all kinds of ways that we actually are not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about, sort of limiting beliefs that we call in coaching, and people probably say, what on earth is that? And those are just beliefs that we take on as fact, we believe to be fact. For example, if I can give you a personal example, it's that when I was young, probably about 8 or 9, I was told by a teacher that I was very bad at maths and that I'd always have issues with strategic thinking. So that became a belief of mine. And literally, I went through life trying to avoid anything mathematical and also believing that I'm not able to do strategic thinking. And it was through coaching that I realized I was a session musician for years. So I played drums and percussion, which are very mathematical. I also went on, I also was a general manager of yoga studios where I had to do very intricate sort of spreadsheets and staff rotas and all the rest of it. And I actually realized that even though there was evidence that actually I was very capable in this area, my belief didn't even sort of almost perceive this evidence, because my belief said, no, I'm not good at strategic thinking, and I'm not good at maths, so I'm not good at that. And that's a very good example of just the beliefs that we're running. I see them like software programs that we're just running because we were told at some stage that we weren't good at that, or, you know, and then we live with that and we believe that as fact. And so it's about the self-discovery of, hang on a minute, what am I sort of carrying around with me? You know, what are these beliefs that are actually limiting my potential as a human being?
Right. And how, it's really interesting, maybe we could pursue this a little bit further, because I think this is very helpful and practical for people. And in your experience of coaching around this, how do you help people to uncover what these limiting beliefs are? Because, of course, when you have them, they don't feel like beliefs, do they? They feel like fact. I mean, they feel like reality.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's
how do you notice that actually what's going on is you're holding a belief that you could change?
Yeah. It's about the coaching sort of process, really, because you start talking to people. And as you go into different areas, as a coach, I will recognize a limiting belief. And because I normally get a very good relationship with the people that I coach, I just say to them, oh, that's interesting. You know, is that a limiting belief that you're saying there? What evidence do you have to show that it's true? And it's literally about getting a torch and shining a light on it and bringing it up out into the open, that we can begin to question it. But it's while it's subliminal and it's just ticking away, like, as I said, like a software program that we run, we're not aware. And it's always about awareness. It's like, my clients, when they go away and they catch themselves in repeating patterns, which are often being reinforced by the negative belief, they just start to catch themselves. Oh, hang on a minute now. Let me just take a step back. What am I doing? And it's this, just bringing yourself, what I call is bringing yourself back to center again, and just becoming aware of these different programs that we're running all the time. And it's once you become aware, you can't go back. So it's a little bit like, if there's someone who puts their hand up, in front of their mouth when they're speaking, which some people do, when they're told about it initially, they'll still do it for a bit, but then they'll come to a stage where, oh, I'm putting my hand in front of my mouth. I choose not to do that. And that's the same with the uncovering of the limiting beliefs. It's just encouraging awareness and giving the support so people can work through them.
Okay, so the first step is to become aware of the beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, as well as these beliefs that we've taken on board over the years, so we also have huge sort of social pressures and expectations from outside, don't we, nowadays? Through, particularly with the social media pressure of what we think our peers are doing and what we think they're like, and how we think we're doing relative to them, and all this kind of thing, the cultural pressures, the family pressures. There's an enormous amount from outside that's buffeting people and causing them to believe they're doing well or badly or whatever. How do you cut through all that and get to anything like the truth of the matter?
Well, some of it is to identify our conditioning, because we are conditioned growing up. As a woman, I've been conditioned, like many women, as young girls, to be all very people-pleasing and very caring and very nurturing, and everyone is lovely. But it also has a negative side that many women, as they grow up and become adults, are people-pleasers, because that's how we got our validation as children. But boys as well, there will be conditioning that children receive and going into adulthood, which does have a strong marked effect. And once again, it's about being able to identify, that's my conditioning, that's not me. And it's really powerful when you manage to do this. Obviously, is how I help my clients as well, to distinguish between, hang on a minute, this isn't me. This is actually something that I've been conditioned to believe, once again, a limiting belief, but it's a conditioning.
Well, you're bringing me on to another really fascinating subject there, I think, which is the whole question of actually who are we? And question of what I would call ego, sort of self-image that we create of ourselves through all these conditionings and through our own story about who we are, let's say, when that is just kind of what we've constructed to be us, isn't it? Again, it's an artificial construction that we're invested in and we're believing. So do you work with that in coaching to help people to see that actually the ego isn't who you really are? That's a tough one though, isn't it? Separating everything you think you know about yourself from who you really are.
Well, the secret is all about discovering your true self.
Uh-huh.
And so I do it the other way around. I encourage my clients to actually get in touch with their true self and what they really want.
Mm.
Because when you ask people, it's really fascinating. What do you want in life?
Mm.
There's a sort of, there's a pause. And do you know what? I've never actually thought about what do I want and what life do I want to create? So I always say when you're 80 or 85 and you look back on your life, what do you want that to have been? Because now's the time to do that, and it's about taking charge. It's really important, I think, about becoming proactive in your life, because many people are reactive. Most people live in a reactive way. And what I mean by that is they're just being pulled around by people and situations and just reacting all the time. I see it, like a pinball table, and there's a silver ball and there's the flippers that flip all over the place. Well, most people are the silver ball and they're just being flipped from pillar to post. And it's really important to begin to take charge of your life. So you just step back and say, hang on a minute, what is it that I want? Because when you start really getting in touch with your life, what you want, and also really importantly is what is a successful life to you? Because it's different for different people. And that's all fair enough. But it's about identifying these key, answering these key questions, if you will, that puts you in touch with really who you are.
And this is very much what the Thrive Tribe is about, trying to help people to thrive in life rather than merely surviving, which I think is your reactive mode, of just getting by. And the notion that, we deserve a bit better than that, so we could be thriving. What commonly I come across, though, Carrie, I don't know whether you see the same when I'm coaching people, is fear comes in, and the fear of risk comes in when you ask someone to take responsibility, to take charge of their life and decide something about their life. We usually, and this is probably the way our brains are wired, we're usually then focusing on, but what might be the downside of that?
Yes.
If I make the wrong decision, what if I set off on the wrong path? Why isn't everybody else taking charge of their life? There must be a reason. And all kinds of weird logic comes in, to stop us taking charge and carving out our own life, shaping our own life. What's your feeling about how people naturally deal with fear and risk, and how coaching helps them?
Well, there's two answers to this question. The first one is about negative thinking, because most people in the Western world have a negative bias. And what I mean by that is they're focusing on what they believe is not going right in their life, what is not working, and why things are all wrong. And it is part of our conditioning, but it's also our go-to, if you will. So I work very much with positive thinking. Why? Because the positive thinking is a springboard to creating your life. And a negative thinking, I just see like a dead zone, because nothing's going to grow in there. And, is possible to change. And I do actually have success changing people quite quickly from a negative thinking to a positive thinking, because most people are not aware that they're actually running a negative bias. And it's when, I sort of discuss with them and talk to them about it, and they become aware, they go, oh, hang on a minute, I actually am running a negative bias, and this is limiting my life. It certainly is, because I'm only looking at what I believe is going wrong, and I am not noticing all the wonderful things that actually I have in my life. And also, when you're in a negative mindset, the most wonderful opportunity can be bubbling away here, but you're not seeing it.
Yes.
And so it is so important to begin to shift towards a positive mindset. It is absolutely key, because in the positive mindset, you will begin to notice opportunities. You appreciate what is really going well in your life. And this is very much a key, because then obviously the fear lessens, because the fear is increased by negative thinking. And also the other issue with fear is the comfort zone. You know, we talk a lot about a comfort zone. And there's a really interesting dichotomy in human sort of beings, is that on one hand, we want the security, you know, the cuddling up under the duvet, feeling really, really safe, which is like the comfort zone. But the thing is, we thrive on challenges. So a comfort zone, while there's a desire to build all this security and to put ourselves behind this fence, actually it's a dead zone. You know, and we become frustrated and unhappy with our lives when we live in our comfort zone. And, you know, there's that famous quote, you know, life begins at the edge of the comfort zone. And the reason why is because every time we challenge ourselves to come out a little bit, we sort of feel, you know, every time you've had a challenge and overcome it, you feel brilliant. You know, every time you've sort of faced the fear and done it anyway, you feel brilliant. And it's just incremental steps, but being aware that what makes us come alive as human beings is the challenge. You know, and all the fear is attempting to protect ourselves and pull us into the comfort zone. And what we need to do is just one little step at a time, is start to challenge ourselves out of this and see, well, I'm still here. Taking the step. It's scary, but I'm still here and I'm okay.
We do seem to have this predisposition in our culture, as you say. You know, maybe it's different in other cultures, but certainly in our culture, we do seem to have this predisposition to look at the risk side of the scales. You know, that always seems unbalanced to me. That nobody's running around saying, "Wow, look at all the opportunity." Well, some people are, but a few in the minority, let's say. But of course, interestingly, I think when you're coaching somebody or chatting to somebody, when you talk about the people they most admire and respect or would like to be like, you suddenly start to see a different kind of person emerging, don't you? Not that everybody doesn't have the difficult days, but the general predisposition of some of these people who become very successful and really do great things in life seems to be to the positive, that I can do it. Why not? You know, there aren't any limits. It's a different way of approaching life, isn't it, really? Yeah,
it's the positive way of approaching life. You know, because also what I do is when my clients are fearful of change, because it is, you know, making changes in your life does need you to be courageous, absolutely. But I always say, okay, you've got two choices now here. One is your default life. So if you don't make any choices, you will have a default life. This is how it will be. It will continue the same. Or there's change. And what's more scary? And most people say, well, my default life. Well, exactly. So here's the choice. Here's the opportunity to change it. And once we start, it feeds it. So once we've done that, we feel okay, or then we can do another one, and we become more courageous, because even talking about risk is more of a negative language, isn't it? So I would say about being courageous, about stepping into your own personal power and actually creating the life you want.
And that begins to get to who you really are, doesn't it? When you talk about stepping into personal power, as opposed to ego. You know, it's much more. One of the things I tend to focus on in coaching is when people don't know, you know, what to do or where to head, and they're not sure what they want and so on, is I try to get them to focus a little bit on where they get their energy from. You know, what that gives them that feeling. My belief is that feeling when we're thinking, wow, that was good, is a feeling we should have a lot more than we do. So why not do more of those things, you know, that get us that feeling? So that's sort of an indicator as to, I think, that begins to point to who we really are, as opposed
to. I call it what makes your heart sing.
Right.
Make your heart sing.
Yes.
Is that what you feel passionate about? Is this when you feel most joyous? Because that will be the sign that you're on the right track.
Yes.
I agree with you completely.
Yes. So I suppose in terms of practical things that people should be thinking about doing, because I try to be practical with these interviews and try to give some tips, you know, here are some things to do. I mean, obviously, you and I will both say, I think, you know, find a coach that you trust, that you can work with well, because there's nothing like having someone ask you a few interesting questions to open up the mind there and get you moving. And then I always try to encourage people to do some work on, find out who you really are. And it's amazing to me how many people say, well, I just don't know the answer to that. You're asking me something I don't know. But it's one of those questions I think that we do know. It's just well inside, isn't it?
Yeah, we've forgotten.
There's no external solution to this. You have to go in.
You have to go in. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And also what I do, because I say I encourage my clients to move from a sort of negative mindset to a positive mindset, is that steps that people can take is begin just to notice when you're sort of maybe complaining or focusing on what's not working in your life, and actually shift it to what is. A very good strategy, which is proved in positive psychology, is to keep a gratitude journal. So the way that it works is that you have a little book by your bed, and you write 5 things that you've appreciated, in the day. And it can be a great cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be sort of mind-blowing in any way, or a lovely chat with a friend or something like that. And the reason that works is it has you actually focusing back on your day and picking out the good things that have happened in your day. And then what happens, because you do it before you go to sleep, is you take that into your sleep and your subconscious works on it. So this is it, and it really works. It's proven to really work, to begin to shift you towards a more positive mindset. And that's something that can be done quite simply. And some of my clients are doing it with their children, and their children absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's an interesting tip.
Yeah.
Talking of journaling, I've also found myself in the past that just the mere act of journaling, the mere act of writing down my thoughts gets me a lot clearer. It works a bit like coaching, the self-coaching kind of way. That I think we just have repetitive thought patterns, where all these noises go around our heads all day, and just the act of writing something down makes it a bit clearer for me somehow.
Yeah,
So
and it embeds it. Yeah.
The other thing you just reminded me, actually, I'd forgotten. The other thing I did a while ago now was to write a sort of a historical journal of my life, trying to capture the things I've achieved in my life so far.
Yes.
And I wrote down everything I could think of that might count as an achievement, even though what we tend to do is dismiss them very quickly, I think, and say, it wasn't that good. So I taught myself the guitar, for example, is on my list of achievements, because it's something I did, and it reminds me that I can teach myself stuff, and I am capable of learning, and so on. So because I'm one of those people with not a great memory, to be honest, and having a journaled version of here are all the things I've done so far, I found really helpful in terms of boosting my own confidence and saying, actually, you've done quite a bit and can do a lot more. So that's something else I would recommend to people.
Oh, absolutely. What I do with my clients, especially about self-esteem, self-worth, is that, like you said, we often sort of dismiss our achievements. So what I ask my clients to do is actually to write their successes down, bullet point, them down, because that's fact. Because we run all these stories about ourselves maybe not being good enough and focusing on what we think hasn't worked, but actually to write down your successes in life actually is fact. Well, this is actually what I've achieved, and everything else here I'm running, more than likely a negative program about myself. So to write down your successes, like you said, really works. It can just be a bullet point. And also what I get my clients to do if they're, sort of not feeling, their full self-worth, is I have them write down, I am excellent at, and do a list of what I'm excellent at. Because it's all about getting in touch with actually, this is fact. This is what I'm good at. And yes, I've had these successes. And yes, I am worthy. So and as I said, it's just a counterbalance to all these stories that we actually run in our minds about not being good enough. This is the fact. So if you put them up somewhere, it's a recognition of, okay, well, that's what I've achieved. Yeah, well done me.
That's really nice. I think the other tip we can pass on to people maybe is something about visualization and thinking about the future, how you want the future to look. It occurred to me at the weekend, I'll just share this quick anecdote, because I was visiting my children at the weekend, who I'm not going to see at Christmas because I'll be away. So we were doing an early pre-Christmas. Had a very nice lunch last Sunday. and we exchanged some gifts. And one of my sons and his girlfriend gave me a small pocket diary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't normally carry because, like a lot of people these days, I do the online thing. You know, it goes into calendar. But it got me thinking. It was such a nice little diary to carry around in my back pocket. And I suddenly had this thought: supposing I wrote in the diary for next year the things I intended to do, rather than the things that had happened.
Yeah.
And I know we tend to have a to-do list for next week, but I'm thinking about, you know, what would be nice to have as an entry in there next September.
Yeah.
Because I think we get caught up in the day-to-day, don't we? And just getting by and doing the stuff that needs to be done. And somehow we need to lift our heads up a little bit and say, but where am I trying to get to?
Yeah.
You know?
It's about inspiration. It's about want to be inspired and think about things. You know, it's like living a limitless life is actually saying, well, you know, for me, I still haven't done it. So I want to go salsa dancing in Cuba. You know, this is something that I've always wanted to do. So we all have these things that we want to do that inspire us and know are going to make us feel great. So time to start doing them. Because otherwise, what is holding us back? It's this, you know, what I call is like the funnel. So what most people do is they're focusing on the bottom of the funnel, which is the nuts and bolts. Like, okay, so I want to go to Cuba. Okay, well, who's going to look after the dog and what's going to happen to my clients? And I'm worrying about the nuts and bolts instead of focusing on the top part, which is the inspirational part.
Yes.
Actually, every time we make a decision, isn't it, you know, our experience tells us we always manage, that the dog gets looked after, that the clients are out, that everything's okay, because we're running on that inspiration. And that's what we need more of in our lives.
That's a great point. And I think when we decide to do something inspirational like that, something relatively big as compared to the day-to-day stuff, what I've found is actually the day-to-day stuff tends to take care of itself, and offers suddenly appear to take care of the dog and to do all kinds of other things. So I think a bit of forward thinking is very useful. I think you're absolutely right. It needs to be in the sort of inspiring zone. I'm not talking about, you know, must do my shopping next week. I'm talking about why don't I learn the guitar, or why don't I fly an airplane, or whatever it might be, you know. And
I really would love to do that. So let me sort of, you know, if I want to fly an airplane, let me book some lessons in. Let me just do it, because it's that. And also we always sort of work best when we're inspired and we act on that inspiration, because otherwise it sort of tail ends and we go, back again. So when we feel inspired, it's great to say, okay, well, I'm going to do that now. I'm actually going to do what I've always wanted to do.
And maybe where a little bit of help and coaching with self-esteem and so on comes in for most people there, Carrie, is I think very quickly people start to think, but, you know, why should I have such a fabulous life? Why do I deserve to have all these wonderful things when everybody around me is living a fairly boring survival kind of life? And I just believe we all deserve it, but we don't believe we do. So there's a belief to work on, right?
It is, absolutely. But also when you do come across somebody that's living their life to the full potential, whatever that is, because it is different for other people, but to live a life where you are enjoying getting up in the morning, you're looking forward to your day, those people are very infectious. You know, their attitude is very infectious. And so the more people that we have are doing that, the better. Because it's like, I'm going to do it too. And it is about, you know, positivity, is about inspiration, and it's about having a lot of joy in our lives as well. And we do deserve it, of course.
Yes, I agree. So yes, the world could do with a lot more people walking around with that kind of attitude, couldn't it? So let's start with the Thrive Tribe. Let's get them going. I promised to mention your book, and I haven't. Just remind us what the book is called, please. And
my book, I've actually got it here.
Oh, fabulous.
So it's called Minx Up Your Life by Carrie Brooks, and it actually fits in quite well with this limitless theme. Because you say, I'm a coach of many niches, but I did notice this recurring theme amongst women who are coming to see me 45 plus. And this was very much a theme that life was over, both career-wise and relationship-wise, that they had nothing left to offer. And basically, I mean, that's me as well. I'm over 45, and the book is for single women as well, because I was finding this particular area that a lot of women were struggling with. And what I've done in my way, of course, is to just flip it on its head and actually say it's an amazing time for a woman 45 plus, because women who come to coaching with me from early 30s to 40s, there's usually babies. Have the babies, not have the babies, find the man to find the babies. This is natural. You've got a limited time in which, you know, and your fertility clock is ticking away like crazy. But the beauty of for a woman is that when you're 45, that's done. That part of your life is over. So you can actually start focusing on yourself and what you'd like to do. Your children are growing up. And it's an amazing time of life for a woman. So that's what the book's about, really. It's just flipping on its head and being inspiring, funny as well.
Yes.
You know, and it's a personal and everything. But I just wanted to sort of flip this on its head. And just the last thing I'll say that actually inspired me to write the book was a series of articles. One actually in The Guardian, which said, you know, the single wilderness and how women in their 50s are invisible. That was the first one that sort of told me, that's not sitting. And then another one was this blog by a woman, calls herself The Plankton, the bottom of the sexual food chain. And it's all about why she's not good enough to have a relationship, to have a proper life. And these two articles sort of and blogs coming together just gave me that impetus to say, oh no, that is completely, let's flip it and have it the other way around. Because let's say, talk about a limitless life for a woman, it's a fantastic time to live a limitless life.
Fantastic, thank you. So Minx Up Your Life, was it?
Minx Up Your Life.
Minx Up Your Life. There you are, everybody. Rush out and get the book.
Fantastic.
I love the cover. Love the cover.
Yes.
So, Kerry, that brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you so much for joining us. That was really brilliant. And well, there's so much we could talk about. Maybe we could do it.
We've gone for hours.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great pleasure. You have a great day. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.